The Joe Rogan Experience.
Have you ever seen anybody confront Rick Ross about you?
Not in person, no. Anytime I'm around, he disappears.
But is there any video of anybody like, hey, why are you running around with this dude's name when this dude's out of jail now?
Well, you know, these guys, they kind of like we talked about, when you got some money, they don't care if you beating women or making them lick tampons. You know, everybody fuck with you.
Right.
So, you know, he was on top of the world at one time.
He was a corrections officer.
Yeah, but he was. But when he got some money, they forgot about he was a correctional officer. You got gangsters, you know, doing records with him, and you know, people who say, "Oh, I hate snitches" and all this, but they doing records with a police officer who put handcuffs. You know, I got letters from guys that was in jail with him when he was a correctional officer, and they told me what a shitty guy he was. You know, that they would be shooting dice, he would take the dice and all the money, and they got extra soup. He'd take the soups, and
wow,
and you know, just stuff that normal officers just don't. You know, officers. I mean, everybody in jail got extra soups. You know, you save your soups because it might come a time and you ain't got them, so you stack your stuff up. But most officers don't even care. You know, who cares about extra soup? We trying to get the dope dealers and, you know, the guys with the knives, but then you got those ones, and they're like, oh, well, you got an extra pair of underwear. You going to the hole.
Really? And that's how he was?
That's how he was. They say that's the kind of cop he was. And then when I hear that he's the biggest gangster rapper on the planet, it's like...
It's just so crazy. What is it like having a dude running around out there with your name? Like, if there was a rapper out there named Joe Rogan, I'd be like, what the fuck?
I mean, it's crazy. You know, like, how would you take my name and not have the decency to ask me first of all? You should have asked, but then never pay homage. You know, he won't even admit that he stole the name. He tells people that he invented the name. Like, how the fuck do you invent this name?
Well, it's so crazy because the name was famous. Your name was famous. Everybody knew who you were. When the case came out, and when the connection to the Iran-Contra affair came out, when everybody found out what was going on, like, you were a legend.
Yeah, you throw a few $1 million, you know, toward Instagram and Facebook and you know, the radio station, and everybody forget about that, you know. And you put a little gold chain on, and you drive
nuts.
A Rolls Royce and a couple of pretty girls.
It's one thing if his name was Rick Ross. It's possible there could be another Rick Ross out there. I've met other Joe Rogans. That's real.
Yeah, me too. I met other Rick Rosses.
But what the fuck, man? The guy knows who you are. Everybody knows who you are. Takes your name. I mean, it's like, it doesn't even make sense that it's like, didn't you have a case? You had like a legal case about it.
I lost the case.
How the fuck did you lose?
They say I should have filed a lawsuit. The judge got to make a technical decision. She had to make a decision, when did the public first become known of him using my name. So what she did is she picked a little radio station outside of Miami that played his record for the first time. So that was the date that the public first became known that he was using the name.
So there was a statute of limitations of when you were supposed to address it?
Yes.
How much time?
2 years.
What?
Yeah, you get 2 years. So if we went by her time frame, I should have filed my lawsuit 5 days before I got out of jail.
Oh, my God.
I was 5 days late.
That's so crazy.
But I think she would have found another reason to come up with a date.
Well, the record company probably would have helped, right? I mean, think about how much money they're making off of him.
Oh, yeah. They would have owed me. They had 15 lawyers.
Oh, my
You know how
God.
much money they say they spent on the lawsuit?
How much?
$1.5 million.
Wow.
You know how much they offered me?
How much?
Zero.
Zero.
They never come and say, hey, man.
What would you have accepted? Just to like...
Well, you know, Joe, my mom, we was getting evicted out of my mom's house during the time of the lawsuit. So I imagine if she was losing her house for $220,000. So if somebody would have came up and said, hey, I'll save your mom's house. Because, you know, I was worried about my mom. My mom was, at that time, she was 83, 84. And one of my biggest concerns was her being homeless. So I probably would have took $220,000. If he would have came and said, hey, I'm going to save your mom's house. Let me have Rick Ross. Change your name to Mitch or whatever.
Well, you wouldn't have to change your name. That's crazy.
But I would
Just license it.
I didn't even care about the name.
Right.
I didn't care about the name like that.
Right.
I just felt that it was so disrespectful that he didn't come and ask me, or he didn't show any consideration or pay any homage to the fact that he actually took my name. So, but yeah, I probably would have took $250,000. If they'd have said $300,000, I'd have been tickled pink, because I felt that I didn't need much money to get started. You know,
Meanwhile, they spent 1.5?
$1.5 million. I owe them right now. I owe them $1 million.
What?
Yeah, I'm $1 million. I got $1 million judgment against
Because you
me.
have to pay their legal fees.
I had to pay their legal fees.
Oh my!
And then the
God.
judge was like, "Oh, well, I don't believe you guys actually spend $1.5 million, but maybe $1 million."
Oh my God!
She gave me $1 million judgment.
Isn't that insane? For your name, your fucking name, and you can't appeal this.
Well, we appealed it, but once you lose to the appeals court, you're not going to the Supreme Court or anything like that there. So, yeah, that's how he wound up being able to continue to use the name. He changed to Rose though.
Yeah.
Because they thought they might lose.
Right.
If this judge picks a different date,
Yeah.
we go to trial.
Right.
And they didn't want to go to trial. I think if they went to trial, everybody in LA would have they would have hammered him. Like, you stole that name. If you'd have heard the thing that he did, because we did his deposition. We took his depo. That was the first time I ever met him in person. He wouldn't shake my hand either.
Really?
No, when he walked in, all the attorneys, it was a big table. It was about 12 people in the room, and he walks in, and he walks around the table, shakes everybody, including my lawyer, shakes my lawyer's hands and everybody, and I stood up to shake his hand because I don't have no hard feelings, just give me my money.
Right.
So he rolls his eyes at me and walks away, turn his little shoulder like,
wow.
I ain't, and then he comes up with this, oh my goodness, I don't know where he got the story from. He said he played football in high school, and the whole team was called the Big East. And some guy was trying to call him Big East and accidentally called him the Big Boss, and then somebody else called him Rick Ross. It went from Big Boss to Rick Ross. That's his story.
That's the dumbest,
how he came up with the name Rick Ross.
That's the dumbest fucking story I've ever heard in my life.
If I'd have been a judge, I would have hammered him just for saying, come in my courtroom lying like that. I would have been
That's the dumbest. But that's impossible. If he's rapping about drug dealing and money, it's impossible that he doesn't know who you are. Impossible. Not possible.
I agree.
Everybody knew. I knew who you were. I had heard the story.
Well, in
I don't even remember when I read about it.
When Gary Webb published a story in '96 with the San Jose Mercury News, my name that year was one of the biggest names in the country.
Yeah, because the story was insane.
It was the first time any story had ever been published on the internet by a major newspaper. Remember, the internet was brand new.
Right.
So when they published that article on the internet, no story had ever, because remember the CIA tried to recall that article, but once it hit the internet, it can't be recalled.
They tried to recall the article?
You don't remember?
I don't.
The printed copies they stopped doing. They took the CIA emblems off and everything.
Really?
Yeah, they made them take all that stuff off. But the internet couldn't be, you couldn't take it back at the time. Once it hit the internet, it's like, boom, it's all over the world. When you hit that button, ain't no recall.
Right.
If you put something on that thing and you hit that button, what you said is what you said. You're gonna have to live with that.
Right.
So when it went viral, it was nothing they could do, and it just went crazy. So everybody picked it up. CNN, Nightline, Dayline, 2020. I'm doing like 6 interviews for my jail cell every day. Every day, people coming out and talking to me. And I told you, that's when the CIA came down. The CIA came to my jail cell and interviewed me. The CIA, the OIG, Congress, Maxine Waters. I mean, it was like, fuck, I become a celebrity in jail. Like, they start treating me different.
What did the CIA say to you in jail?
What did I know about cocaine, being trafficked by the Contras, Which I didn't really know about the Contras. I knew Danilo. I don't know about no damn Contras, and I knew.
You knew the guy who was supplying you.
Yeah, that's all I know. I don't know if he was a Contra or if CIA informant, or I don't know none of that shit. I never cared. I'm an illiterate, 28, 30-year-old guy from South Central, never watched the news, and I'd heard about the Iran-Contra stuff, but that shit didn't mean nothing to me. Had no effect on South Central LA. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
I don't know that my prices and my drug quality depending on what happened over there. I'm not paying no attention to that. I'm just worried about, man, my drugs are going to get here on time. Is it going to be cheap? Is it going to be good? So when all that stuff was coming about, they wanted to know how much money I was making, who I bought drugs from, what years I bought drugs, just a whole, basically like an interview.
So how do you think it worked? Do you think there's like a rogue element that was inside of the government?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. But I not mean to cut you off.
No, go ahead.
Because it was a rogue element to it. But the rogue element come from the top as well. Not that they necessarily sanctioned it, but they knew about it. And
they turned a blind eye.
They turned a blind eye. It was a saying, Nancy Reagan said, say no, and Ronald Reagan said, act like you don't know. So
yeah, that's what they did.
They admitted. CIA admitted, yes, we knew they were selling drugs. And we did nothing to stop them. So right there is a crime. Because if you're an agent of the government and you know somebody's committing a crime, you're supposed to stop it.
Right.
But they understood that if they stop that, they lose the war.
Right. Phew. It just makes you wonder how much of that shit was going on during the Vietnam War. Because a lot of people think that the Vietnam War a lot of it was about moving heroin.
Yeah, I heard that as well.
Yeah, and that makes sense. It makes sense. Like, if you are in a bit, especially the Vietnam War, right? Because the Vietnam War was started with a false flag. So the Gulf of Tonkin incident starts the Vietnam War. The Gulf of Tonkin incident never took place. It was a fake incident. And they said, we were attacked by North Korea, North Vietnam. We have to go in there and fight the Viet Cong. Never happened. It was fake. They made it up just to get us to go to war. So if you're willing to kill, who knows how many Americans died in that war? Hundreds of thousands, probably. How many people died during the Vietnam War? How many American soldiers? I think it's close to 100,000, maybe more. And then how many Vietnamese got killed? Like the overall cost of lives is catastrophic, and they did it knowing.
Well, that sometimes they feel that
58,220 U.S. Fatal casualties. And that doesn't include how many people were wounded and fucked up for the rest of their life. How many people died totally? How many people died all deaths of Vietnam War? What's the total deaths? That's just American deaths.
And that ain't counting Agent Orange.
Right, right.
Casualties gets bigger because
1.4 million civilian casualties in South Vietnam because of the war.
Casualties just means death.
Right, I understand.
Yeah.
Including 415,000 deaths, and estimated by the Defense Department gave the figure of 1.2 million civilian casualties, 195,000. It's all controversial what the actual number was. 1978 estimated 1,353,000 total deaths in North and South Vietnam during that period. Fuck, man. So if they're willing to do that, you don't think they're willing to make money off drugs? I mean, if they're willing to let people die so that they can achieve their objectives, they're willing to sell drugs.
They felt that to sacrifice a few people to stop what they felt was the greatest threat to America.
Right.
Was with Russia being on our southern hemisphere, being in Nicaragua. They felt that was the greatest threat at that time to our democracy.
Yeah.
And they felt that they would do anything to stop that.
What a crazy thing to do, though, to think about the sacrifices what it's gonna do to American citizens, including the people that, like you, went to jail for helping them. The whole thing is crazy.
Well,
and they probably did it during Afghanistan.
and we still
too.
suffering now. That's the homeless problem.
Yes.
Most of the people that's homeless was on crack.
Right, right.